Hello everyone, so this will be a quick video on how I keep track of what I'm working on. So if you follow my practice notes page, you can see that I keep a chart on there and I record how much composing I do each day, as well as how much I practice repertoire, also technique, improvisation, and studying. And I do that in the form of a spreadsheet. So this is the file and I'll make it available for bonus materials patrons. But basically I keep a general log of what I do each day in these 5 different fields. Some days it's more accurate than others because, let's be honest, sometimes I might be working on something and a couple of hours will pass and I'll have a general sense of what I've been doing during that span of time. Sometimes I'll, subtract half an hour, depending on the day of break time. So it's really a general recording of things, just to keep track of things so that I have some sort of quantitative data. So when I look back on my week or my month, I know what areas I've been putting more of a focus on and what areas I need to really vamp up, and so on and so forth. So if you don't have access to this downloadable file, you can easily make it on your own using a simple spreadsheet. What I have here, I've really fine-tuned over the last, 10, 15 years. I've tried many different ways of keeping track of things. I used to do it on pen and paper, on Post-its, but this has really served me well because it gives me a very clear visual representation of how much work I've been doing. So each row will represent a day, and I have these sections divided so that I have a week at a time, and each column is represented by one of the 5 categories that I mentioned, plus this other column, and that it depends on the day or week. Sometimes it gets filled up with really random things, but music related. Next to each column, there is a hours tab where I keep track of the quantity. So if I did an hour and a half, I'll just put 1.5. And the beautiful thing about spreadsheets is that you can program it so that the number of total hours can be automatically computed. So here is the past few months for me. As you can see, there are many blue and gray tabs. All of the blue tabs are active tabs, so I actually did something on that particular subject that day. And pink tabs are days where I did something extra, and I just keep track of that as well. So as you can see, it's just a visual layout, and I can really reference it in a quick manner. And I'm not going to zoom into the screen because the details don't matter here. I just wanted to show that the beauty of tracking things is not in the details, but the overall essence of what you've been doing. So if I just scroll down, I could kind of see what my past month was like. And I'm constantly reminded of areas that I intend to work on. Even if I don't spend any time on a particular subject for a number of weeks, I know it's there, so it's a good reminder. Beyond that, let me just go over some specifics about what type of work I do in each category, which you can probably tell from the videos I post on my YouTube channel and also on the practice notes page, but it's not as obvious or straightforward. For composition, it's rather straightforward yet open-ended because it really depends on what pieces I'm writing at a given time, and this keeps changing. And there are several pieces. Right now I'm working on some pieces for my album. I just finished pieces for YouTube videos, for example, the List Happy Birthday. I started a film score and I have a commission. So I'll just keep track of the specifics of which pieces that I've been writing within the spreadsheet. For repertoire, the same thing. It depends on what I need to play for video or things I need to play in order to study them. So when I was doing this Liszt video, going back to that, I studied a lot of scores by Liszt, and in order to really get in depth into the music, sometimes it's not enough for me to just listen to a recording. So I'll spend some time actually playing through different sections of the piece, and I'll count that in as repertoire. And also pieces of mine that I need to practice, I'll record that into the spreadsheet as well. When I'm actually going into the specifics of a certain kind of technique, or maybe I'm breaking it apart to understand it better, that goes into a different category. For example, it'll go into the category of study or technique. And for technique, these days I've been working on taking, let's say, the first page or so of Chopin's Opus 10 number 1 and transposing it in different keys, just note for note. And in order to do this, I've been analyzing the chord progression for that. Beyond that, sometimes I don't feel like practicing specific exercises, so I'll just go to an etude. And again, you know this about me, I'm a huge fan of Chopin etudes, so I'll just pick up an etude and I'll spend maybe 20 minutes or so, 20-30 minutes just practicing that. On top of that, I will say these days, because of that Liszt video again, sometimes I'll break apart a specific technique. For example, I'm not used to practicing octaves that much, but for Liszt, there are a lot of octaves involved. So I'll just go through different arpeggios and different scales, all in octave form. Let's move on and talk about improvisation. For me these days, this has been involving a logic session, or just basically a backing track. And most times I'll just make something on my own. I'll have a steady beat going and I'll record in a chord progression or a bass line and I'll improvise over that. Maybe just fixated on a specific mode or a specific rhythmic pattern. Okay, so I have a file here that says improv. So I have a 7-beat groove here. I have a track for Dorian. I have a synth track. I think that was from the Irregular Pulse video. I have these loops and backing tracks for All the Things You Are from my bebop video. And I'll just put it on and I'll just look at the clock and just give myself 20, 30 minutes, sometimes a lot more. And I will, these days, plan on a specific target note or a target framework around a specific mode, which I will include in my improvisation just so that I have an extra bit of structure when I'm improvising. Sometimes when I'm writing, I'll set aside an open-ended improvisation session where I take fragments of the piece that I'm currently writing and I'll just improvise, and whatever comes, and it's usually for the purpose of coming up with new ideas for the piece. So as you can see here, I have 2 keyboards. This is the keyboard I left with my host family in Toronto, and this is their Nord keyboard. So it's been a while since I've used this particular keyboard, so it's really nice to get my hands on it again. But it's not something that I could have brought to New York, so I just left it here, and I'm writing a piece that involves piano, acoustic piano eventually, and electric keyboard. So in order to work on that, I have managed to get a hold of these 2 at the same time, and I've been, just spending time improvising and coming up with little bits of pieces of phrases and things like that for the piece that I'm writing. Moving on to studying. So what exactly is this? This is very important for me, especially for the videos that I make, because I need to really analyze a lot of music and study through a lot of scores, study up on different kinds of composers, different historical facts, and this all goes into that category. Basically, I'm just trying to gather a lot more information, sometimes to confirm what I already know, but also just to learn about new things related to music theory, harmony, history, and music analysis, all of that. Also genres, but that I don't really keep track of. To study a particular genre, sometimes for me, is just putting it on a playlist, but that is not what I'm talking about here. So I hope that helps, and I hope that gives you an idea of how you could manage your own practicing throughout the week. Again, I'll make this file available to Bonus Materials patrons, and I hope you all have a productive and wonderful week.